Dre all day.
You're now in the best place at the best time, tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. Yes, it's the go-getter energy that moves you to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one book, one show. You get work on your game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to combat overwhelm. Overwhelm is defined as to bury or drown beneath a huge mass. How do you combat the feeling of being overwhelmed? Because see, the thing about being overwhelmed is an adjective, or it could be a verb or an adjective. Overwhelmed is a verb or it could be adjective. The feeling is what we're talking about here today. Being overwhelmed is adjective, meaning is relative, meaning the exact same thing that causes you to feel overwhelmed, somebody else could have the exact same circumstances that you have and they don't feel overwhelmed at all. So the feeling of overwhelm is much more mental than it is something tangible. Just because X, Y, and Z and A, B, and C all happen to you at the same time, you do not have to feel overwhelmed by it. Even though everybody who's watching it and saw what happened to you said, damn, you must feel overwhelmed, or damn, you got overwhelmed, or damn, if that happened to me, I would really feel overwhelmed. You do not have to feel that way just because somebody else did, or somebody else would, or because someone else presupposes that you feel overwhelmed by a situation. This is all about the way that you look at a situation, how you decide to feel about a situation, and or how you decide to, or if you respond to a certain situation. Again, the definition is to bury or drown beneath a huge mass. Now, if you drown, you drown. All right, I think there's a scientific definition of drowning, and bury there's a tangible way that we can define that. But again, we're not talking physically. We're talking the way that you feel mentally, spiritually, emotionally about a situation. Today, we're talking about the noun, the feeling of being buried beneath a mass of things such as challenges, problems, needs, ideas, opportunities. Sometimes you can be overwhelmed by opportunity, or at least feel like you are. That's what we're talking about here today. How to combat those feelings of feeling as if there is so much on you right now, so much being asked of you, so much crowding in on you all at one time that you're not able to handle it all. If you've ever felt that way, you're going to have the tools by the end of this masterclass to never feel that way ever again. That is if you apply everything that I'm going to give you here today, but I'm going to lay it all out for you so you'll have no problem doing so. Point number one, today's topic is how to combat overwhelm, the feeling of being buried beneath a mass of any type of situation that, again, is represented in your mind, not in the tangible. Point number one, prepare. This is the first way to combat overwhelm. The more prepared that you are for what is coming, or what you think is coming, or what you expect could possibly come, the easier you handle it. Louis Seneca talked about this in his book, Letters from a Stoic, or a book that was put together in his name, Letters from a Stoic. He is the godfather of the philosophy of Stoicism, which is really about mastering your emotions when it comes to challenges, when it comes to even death, when it comes to any situation in life. Mastering your emotional response to a situation instead of reacting, which is something that happens immediately and instinctively, responding, which means you put a space between the stimulus and the response. Seneca talks about the better that you can anticipate something occurring, the more easily you'll deal with it, even if it's something that you don't want. All right? If you know somebody's going to cuss you out at work tomorrow and you are anticipating it and you're already mentally prepared for the fact that it's going to happen and how you're going to respond and how everybody's going to be like and what you could possibly do about it, even though you can't predict exactly how it's going to go, at least if you're ready for it, then it doesn't bother you as much when it happens. Now, if you had no idea somebody's going to cuss you out and then they cuss you out in front of everybody, you're shocked by it, right? You're like, oh my God, I didn't know this was going to happen, and you're all frazzled. But if you expected it and then it happens, you deal with it a whole lot easier. Isn't that true? When you know something is coming, even if it's something that you don't want, it's not as bad as when it just comes unexpectedly. See, the art of surprise is really what throws people off of their balance, throws people off of their, there's a certain phrase I was looking for, that their, it just slipped my mind. I just had it and then I lost it. I'll get back to it. Their equilibrium, that's the word I'm looking for. You want to destroy somebody's equilibrium. It's not that you have to be so powerful or so forceful with what you're doing. All you got to do is be surprising. If you can surprise somebody and catch them when they're not expecting something, even if your force is not that great, you can throw somebody off completely. This is one of the things that boxing historians, I'm no boxing historian, but people who are historians of boxing always said about Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, late great boxer, was that Ali was not that powerful of a puncher. Even though he was a heavyweight and he was a big guy, Ali's main thing that made him so great in boxing was that he had this speed and this quickness. He was very evasive. It was hard for you to hit the guy because he was always moving his head. He was very light on his feet, and he had the same float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Any of you who's ever seen a butterfly float, you see how hard it is to even visually keep track of a butterfly because it's moving in all these jagged patterns and you have no idea where it's going to go next, right? That's how a butterfly moves. So it's really hard to catch a butterfly with your hands because of the way it moves. And also, any of you ever been stung by a bee, you know the sting hurts a little bit, but it doesn't kill you. It doesn't paralyze you. I mean, you get stung by a bee and you can keep walking, right? You can keep driving. You can keep playing basketball, whatever it is that you're doing. But the sting, you feel it. I mean, it hits you. Now, imagine getting stung by a bee over and over and over again over the course of 36 minutes, which is the length of a 12-round boxing match, or you add nine more minutes of a 15-round match, how it was back in Ali's day. That could kind of mess you up a little bit. You're getting stung over and over and over again. One sting doesn't really hurt you, but if it's happening over and over, then that's a problem. And the thing about Ali, to tie up this point, was that this guy would just surprise you with his punches because he was so quick. And his punches would come from angles that you didn't see coming, and you didn't see the punch coming. The punch that you don't see coming hurts you more than the light punch from Ali, because he was known as not a super powerful puncher, even though a heavyweight. That punch bothers you more because you didn't see it than the heavy-handed fist of a George Foreman or a Sonny Liston, one of these big ham-handed, heavy, hard-hitting heavyweights from back in the day. At least if you knew they were punching you, you could brace for it, right? It's like if you're in a car, any of you ever been in a car accident, if you saw the accident coming, you could kind of brace for the impact, and it doesn't hurt you as much as if, let's say, you're asleep in a car and then a car accident comes. You weren't able to brace for it. Your body's not ready for it at all. You weren't tensed up at all for it. You get thrown out of the vehicle just because you weren't able to brace for the hit, even though it might not have been that hard of a hit. And that could hurt you a lot more just because you didn't see it coming. All of that is going under this umbrella of prepare to combat overwhelm. You won't be as overwhelmed by somebody punching you if you're a boxer. Hopefully that's the only place you're getting punched if you're a boxer or an MMA fighter or something. You won't be as overwhelmed by it if you see the punches coming as opposed to a couple punches that you didn't know were on the way. All right, some ones that you just didn't see the angle they were coming for. The more prepared you are for what's coming and what you think is coming, the easier you handle it. And when you know something is coming, you're usually not overwhelmed by it. At least you knew it was coming. At least you know the scope of what's coming. Let's put it that way. You may know that there's going to be a snowstorm tomorrow. And if you understand the scope of the snowstorm, you know that the forecast says, all right, it'll be up to 5 inches of snow. It doesn't overwhelm you when you get 5 inches of snow, maybe even up to 7 inches. Now, if you think that it's going to snow tomorrow, but you hear it or you believe there's only going to be a light dusting, but then it ends up being a blizzard. Now you might be overwhelmed by it because you weren't prepared for the scope of what was on the way. So if you know what's coming and you're able to anticipate for whatever reason the scope of what's coming, then you're able to deal with it, right? If I know I'm going to get stung by a bee, I have an idea what it feels like to get stung by a bee. It doesn't bother me that much. Now, not like I'm trying to get stung, but I can deal with it because I got an idea what's coming. I got an idea what it feels like. You understand that? When you know something's coming, you're not as overwhelmed by it, or maybe not overwhelmed at all. When we are overwhelmed, as I explained with the Muhammad Ali example, is usually by things that surprise us, something we didn't see coming or something that we expected, but we didn't expect it in the form in which it arrives. This is kind of like the art of warfare, being able to surprise your opponent. Your opponent may think they know how you're going to attack, but then you attack a completely different way. Ali, again, when he fought George Foreman, everyone thought, hey, George Foreman is such a big, heavy-hitting, hard-hitting heavyweight. He's going to destroy Ali. People thought George Foreman was going to literally kill Muhammad Ali with how hard he hit in that boxing match. And Ali came out and said, I'm going to slug it out with Foreman. And everybody said, Ali's crazy. He's going to get murdered trying to go punch for punch with George Foreman. Because George Foreman just hits harder than Muhammad Ali. But Ali was able to fool Foreman into believing that that's what he really wanted. He was able to infuriate Foreman and get Foreman to come out in that fight just throwing punch after punch, throwing all these haymakers, using up all his energy. And then by later on in that fight, Foreman had used up all his energy. Ali still had plenty of it because he hadn't really been doing anything but just absorbing Foreman's blows by blocking them, but absorbing them. And then he was able to knock Foreman out, not because he was more powerful than Foreman, but because Foreman had drained all his energy and Ali was able to hit him from angles that he didn't see coming. And Foreman got punch drunk. He was able to knock him out. You might know that there's a game, let's say tomorrow, those of you who are athletes, or a match, but maybe you didn't know how your opponent was going to approach, like George Foreman. He knew that he was going to be in a boxing match against Muhammad Ali, but I don't think he expected Ali to fight the way that he fought, and that's why Ali was able to overwhelm Foreman, even though everybody thought Foreman was going to overwhelm Ali. So sometimes you can turn situations on their backs by anticipating what the situation is going to bring, and then surprising the situation with an unconventional response to whatever the stimulus is. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to combat overwhelm. Stop allowing overwhelm to happen in the first place. Now, there are 2 ways that you can do this. One way is to just decide that you're going to have a bulletproof mindset and not allow circumstances or situations to make you feel as if you can't handle them, because that's really what overwhelm is. Anyone says they're overwhelmed is like they have so many of a situation or so much of a situation on their hands that they just feel like they can't deal with it. You can choose to never feel that way. Now, that would be the whole episode if that was all I was going to say. So that's one way of doing it. And I have a course called Bulletproof Mindset. If you didn't know, it's Bulletproof Mindset 2.0. This is the second version of the course. You can get that at workonmygame.com/bulletproof. But the other way that I'm talking about when I say stop allowing overwhelm to even occur, it means stop trying to process everything, whatever everything is. Stop trying to process it all at once when what you need to be doing is the only thing that the human brain is actually capable of doing, which is this: handling one thing at a time. If you have 10 things that you're trying to handle all at the same time, of course, you are inviting the energy of overwhelm to occur in your mind, simply because you are trying to do something that your brain is incapable of doing. The human brain is the most powerful machine known to man. All right, there is no machine, no rocket ship at NASA, no Tesla automobile, no iPhone that Apple's cooking up that is more powerful than the human brain. However, the human brain has a limitation that the phones and the computers and the Teslas and the spaceships do not have, in that it can only focus on one thing at a time. You try to make your brain focus on more than one thing at a time, you are asking for overwhelm. So stop doing that. I don't care how many tasks you have on your hand, how many emergency fires that you believe you need to put out all at the same time. You can only put out one fire at a time. You can only handle one thing at a time. So how about you resolve to only do that? Just do what you are capable of doing, which is handling one thing at once. You know how any of you who has a computer, which is probably most of us, if you have too many tabs open on your Google Chrome or your Firefox or your Safari browser, what happens? Eventually, if you have too many tabs open and they're all trying to do too many things, or whatever too many is for your computer, depends on your operating system, right? And the health of your computer. But eventually the computer starts slowing down, right? You get if you're on Windows, you get, I believe on Windows, I haven't used it in a while, you get that hourglass that keeps turning over and over again and nothing happens. You move it and you don't even get a mouse, you just get the hourglass, or eventually the computer freezes up and it doesn't do anything. Or on a Apple device, you got that rainbow wheel of death that we call it. You don't want that rainbow wheel of death, because usually when that wheel comes, you're not going to see those tabs again until you shut down the computer and you have to start it all over again, right? That means you got to reset the whole system because you have overwhelmed it by trying to do too many things at the same time. This is the same thing that happens to the human brain. You are creating fertile ground for overwhelm when you try doing too many things at once. Let me give you a clear definition of what too many is. When I say too many things at once in your brain, that means more than one. If you're doing any more than one thing at a time mentally, you're doing too many things at once. And therefore, you are creating fertile ground for overwhelm. You are asking overwhelm to come into your life when you try to do more than one thing at a time, mentally. And if you're doing more than one thing physically, you have to be doing more than one thing mentally, because hopefully you're at least thinking about what the hell you're doing as you're doing it. Too many is more than one. Even if there are 20 things that need your attention, again, and need, another relative term. Do 20 things really need your attention all at the same time? Usually no. I don't know anybody who there really is 20 things that need your personal attention all at one time. Not a single one of us not a single one of us lives the type of life there 20 things need our attention. Now, maybe you believe that 20 things need your attention, but it's not actually true. There may be 2 things, maybe 3, but 20, no. Unless you have 20 babies, unless you had 20 babies at the same time and they're all screaming your name and they all need to be breastfed, maybe in that situation. But anything other than that, the only thing I ever heard of was the octo mom, and that was only 8. All right, so 20, no. You don't have 20 things that need your attention. All right, maybe you want to handle all 20 things. Maybe you are taking personal responsibility for all 20 things. Maybe you are such a control freak that you're the only one who will allow yourself to handle each one of those 20 things. But I guarantee you all 20 of those things do not need your personal attention right now. All right, that's just you. You have convinced yourself that you need to do all 20 things, but you actually don't. All right, you have created that state of overwhelm by what I just explained. You created it by demanding to handle everything yourself, by not delegating work to other people, by making things more important than they actually are, by not making the important things important enough, by making the less important things too important. All of these are ways that you create overwhelm in your own mind. You are the master of your fate. And if your fate is to be overwhelmed, it's because you have created it. You have allowed it to happen, and or you have forced it to happen by trying to do too many things at once, trying to take on things you don't need to be taking on, handling stuff that somebody else should be handling, that somebody else was handling if you would just get the hell out of the way. All of these create overwhelm, and they're all your fault. But I'm telling you how to fix it. Prioritize and plan your action by handling one thing at a time. I heard this rapper, Fat Joe. I talked about him a couple weeks ago, and I told you how in the episode on leadership that sometimes you got to put your ego aside to lead or to better the team. That he realized when he signed this rapper called Big Punisher, he said, Big Punisher is the best rapper here. Even though I've been around longer, I got the longest track record of everybody. I'm the leader of this group here that we call the Terror Squad. Big Punisher is the best rapper. So I'm going to put my ego aside and put Big Punisher out front. If you didn't hear that episode, I suggest you go back and listen to it. Listen to it again if you listened to it already. But another thing I heard Fat Joe say, because Fat Joe is from the Bronx, New York. And I know we got some Bronx listeners here. Shout out to New York. Shout out to the Bronx. Fat Joe said that when he was young and he would go to school, every day when he walked home, there were some bigger kids on his way walking home who would always mess with him, and they would beat him up. If he didn't fight, they were going to beat him up. And even if he did fight, they would beat him up. And Fat Joe said, I realized that every day when I walk home, I'm going to have to deal with these guys. There's nothing I can do to not have to deal with these guys. So Fat Joe said when he would run into these kids who would mess with him every day, he decided that this is how he was going to handle it. He would look for the biggest one in the group, the one who seemed like the toughest, the strongest, the hardest to beat. He would punch that guy in the face. Now, he knew he was going to have to fight 5 guys at the same time, or 8 or 10, or however many of them it was. He decided, all right, if I'm going to get beat up, I'm going to get beat up swinging. I'm going to go down swinging, and I'm going to hurt some people along the way. I'm going to hit the biggest dude in the group. Why? Because the biggest dude in the group is usually the ringleader. And if I can take him out, if I can make him scared, then maybe that'll scare off the rest of them. That was good strategy by Fat Joe, a little kid at that time. I don't think he read that in a book. I think it's just something that he realized on his own. That's great intuition by Joe. I guess he might have, I don't know, maybe he was fat back then too. Maybe he was skinny Joe at the time, pudgy Joe. It's the same thing that you need to do with your situations in life. You got a bunch of things that you need to handle, and a bunch is anything more than one. What's the biggest one? What's the biggest one that you can handle right now to take care of everything else? Have any of you ever heard of the saying, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter? That's what this means. That's one of the 48 laws of power, as a matter of fact. 48 laws being my favorite book. If you have not read that book, I suggest you read it like yesterday. ASAP, go get it. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter means one thing. You find the ringleader of a situation. You find the biggest issue of a situation. Usually, if you find yourself having a whole lot of things on your hands to handle, and you're like, man, how am I ever going to handle all of these? Let me give you a secret. Okay, here's the secret. Usually, there is one ringleader of that mass of issues, of challenges, of situations, of problems that you need to handle. There's one ringleader within it that if you handle that one thing, it will make all the rest of them irrelevant. It will make all the rest of them not even an issue anymore. You wouldn't even need to address them ever as long as you handled that one thing. I heard Tim Ferriss say this. What is the one big domino that if I knocked over this domino, all the other dominoes would just fall over in succession? Any of you ever seen somebody set up a set of dominoes? You knock down one and then it just does this this pattern and it's really impressive how they set up all the dominoes. That's the same thing. What's the one domino that knocks over all the rest of the dominoes on their own? Who's the one big kid in the group that's about to beat me up, that if I sock him, then all the rest of them don't want to fight anymore? Who is that? Where's that problem? That's the way you need to address situations in life. When you find yourself having a lot on your hands, what is the one thing I need to address first? Point number 3. Today's topic is how to combat overwhelm. And this is all about how you're combating it mentally. It is not physical. Point number 3, you got to do what Fat Joe did. Play offense. See, what most people do in situations like what Fat Joe faced, metaphorically, hopefully you're not getting beat up when you walk home from school these days. I think we're in a different era. I don't think that's happening anymore. That was the 80s, 90s. I don't think it goes like that anymore. But hopefully that's not happening anyway, no matter where you are. If you were, metaphorically speaking, facing a group of bullies who wanted to beat you up, and there's 5 of them, there's only 1 of you. All right, the worst thing you could do is cower and roll up into a ball in the fetal position and just let them kick your ass. The best thing you could do is punch one of them in the face. So at least they know that if they mess with you, they're going to have to fight. And somebody's going to get hit in the face, and you're not going to just lay down and let them beat you up. And usually, you know what will happen when you do that? 1 or 2 times? They go find somebody else to beat up. They go find somebody who's not going to fight back. Because listen, I don't care how tough or how strong anybody is, the best boxer in the world doesn't want to get punched in the face. If they can win a fight without getting hit, they'll take that one over the person who's going to hit them back. Most people will. All right, so you should play the odds and play offense. In episode 1179, I talked about playing life on offense. If you have not heard that episode, again, go back. Game group members, you got access to that. The full episode, listen to it. Playing life on offense. If you do not play life on offense, you find yourself back on your heels too often when dealing with other people, dealing with situations, then you're not playing life on offense. You need to start playing offense. And I told you exactly how to do it in episode 1179. Overwhelm, ladies and gentlemen, usually crowds in on us when we are back on our heels, passively allowing things to happen to us while we do nothing. That's how overwhelm occurs. We're allowing things to happen to us, but we're not doing anything back. We're allowing the bullies to bully us, but we're not hitting any of them back. Of course, they're going to keep bullying you because they know they can get away with it. That's the way life works. When you go on the offensive, let me tell you what happens. There are 3 specific things that happen when you go on the offensive in life. Number 1, you start handling what's on your plate. All right, that's a good place to begin, right? Handling what's on your plate. There's a situation right here in front of me. Let me handle this situation right here. That's the first benefit you get when you start playing life on offense. Here's the second thing that happens. You start focusing on what you're actually doing in the moment. Now, if you got 5 bullies trying to beat you up, you're probably not thinking about, how am I going to do my homework, or who's that girl that I'm going to call, or what am I going to buy at the candy store that's 2 blocks away, because you got to get through this block to get to that block, right? You focus on what you're doing in the moment when you start playing life on offense. You have so much focus in the current moment that usually situations start moving out of your way because they see you know where you're going. You ever been in that situation in life where, I'm talking about physically, you are really focused on something, you really need to get something done, and you need to get it done now? All of a sudden, your focus goes up, your energy goes up, you get that tunnel vision to go exactly where you need to go and do what you need to do. And other people notice that in you. We notice it in people. You notice it in others. People notice it in you. Is an unspoken conversation that you don't even have to say anything, that people can feel your energy when you're that focused and you're on offense, focused on one thing. People move out of your way. They're like, hey, I don't know who this person is. I don't know where they're going and where they came from, but they look like they know what they're about to do. Let me get the hell out of this person's way because they look focused. All right? I don't want to get in the way of a focused individual. All right, physically, mentally, emotionally, you don't get in the way of focused people. Focused people move other people out of their way without saying a single word. And I want to let you in on the secret. You can become this person anytime you want, but you got to choose to play offense. And here's the third thing that happens. When you play life on offense, many of your problems and challenges just move out of your way. As I just said, when you punch the biggest guy in the face, the other guys that are with him, they're like, wait a minute, if he punches him in the face and he's the guy that we're following, wait, let me get the hell out of here. He might beat me the hell up. All right, let me move. Let me go away. The other issues and problems that have been crowding in on you, that have been overwhelming you, usually leave you alone when they see that you're willing to hit back. Problems and challenges, ladies and gentlemen, just like the bullies that used to mess with Fat Joe when he walked home from school. They want easy victories over people who will lay down and take it. If you fight back, they'll leave you alone. It's as simple as that. Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. You just got to be willing to play offense. You got to be willing to go on the offensive, go on the attack, not wait for something or someone or a situation to attack you before you attack it first. That's what playing life on offense is about. It's what I alluded to yesterday's episode, talking about stop waiting to live. Stop waiting to play life on offense. Something doesn't have to happen to you before you start happening to other things first. All right, you don't have to be in reactive mode all of your life. Your life does not have to be based on something happened to you first, then you do something. You can just do stuff. All right, you don't have to wait for some type of prompt or some type of permission or some type of call to come through for you to start doing what you want to do. What's stopping you from just doing it anyway? Remembering that you're on the clock. All right, and that clock can run out anytime that it wants to, and you have no say at that point. Let's recap today's topic, which is how to combat overwhelm, mental overwhelm. The definition of overwhelm is to bury or drown beneath a huge mass. We're talking about the noun of overwhelm, not the verb. The feeling of being buried beneath a mass of challenges, problems, needs, ideas, opportunity, etc. Number one, prepare. The more prepared you are for what's coming or what you think is coming, the easier you can handle it. And when you know something is coming, you won't be overwhelmed by it, or at least not as much. When we're overwhelmed, usually it's by surprises, something that we didn't see coming or something that we expected, but it comes in a way that we didn't expect it to come. You might know that if you know that there's a game happening tomorrow, but your opponent comes with a completely different approach than what you expected, that's when you get overwhelmed. And you can turn the tables and do that to other people in situations instead of them doing it to you. Point number two, stop allowing overwhelm to happen at all. What this means is stop trying to process everything at once when you need to be doing the only thing the human brain is capable of, which is one thing at a time. Same way your computer gets frozen when you try to do too much at once, your brain is the same way. And you are creating fertile ground for overwhelm when you try doing too many things at once. And my definition of too many is more than one. All right, the human brain can do one thing at a time. If you try to do more than one, you are creating an environment that is asking to be overwhelmed. Prioritize and plan your action. Point number three, play life on offense. Talked about this in episode 1179. Go listen to that to get the full detail of it. Overwhelm crowds in on us when we are back on our heels, passively watching things happen to us while we do a whole lot of nothing. I told you the story. Rapper Fat Joe, he said he used to walk home every day in the Bronx and these kids would come beat him up. He realized that if he just let them beat him up, they would do it every day. So he decided that, all right, I'm going to just hit the biggest guy in the face and we're going to see what happens from there. And that's how he built his own, I guess we can call toughness. And that's how he probably got those guys to leave him alone, because they realized, look, let's go fight somebody who's not going to hit back. All right, because that's what problems are. They're bullies. They want easy victories over people who will lay down and take it. When you play offense, three things happen. Number one, you start handling what's on your plate, which is a good thing. All right, you deal with the situation in front of you. Number two, you focus on what you're doing in the moment, and people move out of the way when a person is focused. And point number three, or the third thing that happens when you go on offense, many of your problems and challenges go scaring away. They see how well you handled the biggest one, and they're like, all right, if he handled the biggest guy that way, what the hell is he going to do to me? Let me get the hell out of here before I get my ass kicked. When you fight back, problems and challenges usually leave you alone and the overwhelm goes away. Work on your game. Dre all day. Hey, this is Dre all day. If you enjoy this mental game stuff that I talk about on video every day, then I put together a simple masterclass that will give you one key tip for developing what I call the Bulletproof Mindset. All you need to do is go to workonmygame.com/bulletproof. Is the link right here, and it's down below in the video descriptions. Just click on it, take you right to the page. I'm going to give you that video. It's about 20 minutes long. This masterclass I put together, one key tip for developing a bulletproof mindset. And when you get that special masterclass free video, I'm also going to make you a special offer to get the full Bulletproof Mindset experience. So just go to that link that you see right here, and I'm going to show you how to develop that Bulletproof Mindset right now. So if you like this video that you just watched, I'm going to show you how to take it to the highest possible level. You ready for that? Let's do it.